The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber groaned open with a sound like dying stars. Captain David Kane stepped through the entrance and stopped breathing for 3 full seconds. The chamber stretched beyond his vision in every direction, a crystalline dome so vast it could have housed entire cities. Thousands of alien beings filled tiered seats that spiraled upward into darkness, their forms ranging from impossible geometries to creatures that defied every law of biology he knew. At the center of this cosmic arena sat a single human transport ship, looking like a child's toy among giants. The vessel barely measured 200 meters from nose to tail, dwarfed by the alien warships visible through the transparent walls that surrounded the chamber. Some of those ships stretched for kilometers, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Kane walked across the polished floor toward the defendant's platform, his boots echoing in the cathedral silence. Every step felt like walking toward his own execution. Behind him, the doors sealed shut with finality that made his stomach twist. He was alone now, representing all of humanity before the most powerful governing body in the known galaxy. The platform rose from the floor as he approached, lifting him toward the center of attention. Lights focused on him from a dozen different angles, each beam calibrated for the visual spectrum of different species. Some of the illumination hurt his eyes, while other wavelengths revealed colors that had no names in any human language. "State your designation and authority," commanded a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The translator implants behind Kane's ears worked frantically to convert the sounds into something his brain could process. Captain David Kane of the Earth vessel Pathfinder, speaking for the human government and all Earth colonies. A ripple of movement passed through the assembled representatives. Whispers, clicks, electronic pulses, and sounds he couldn't identify filled the air. Kane forced himself to stand straight, shoulders back, chin up. He might be representing the youngest spacefaring species in the galaxy, but he wouldn't show fear. "Human Kane," the voice continued, and he realized it belonged to a massive creature seated at the highest tier of the chamber. The being looked like a cross between a dragon and a mountain, with scales that reflected the chamber's lights like black mirrors. "You stand before the Galactic Council, charged with violations of the expansion accords. How do you answer?" Kane had rehearsed this moment for months during the journey to the Council station. Earth's best diplomats had prepared responses for every possible scenario, but none of their planning had prepared him for the sheer, overwhelming presence of thousands of alien civilizations all focused on him with hostile intent. "I acknowledge that humanity has established colonies without prior council approval," Kane said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. "But I question the authority by which these charges are brought." The silence that followed his words felt dangerous. Kane could sense the shift in the chamber's mood, like the moment before lightning strikes. Representatives from species he couldn't even begin to identify leaned forward in their seats. Some seemed to grow larger with anger, while others flickered through color spectrums that suggested emotional states he couldn't interpret. "You question our authority?" The dragon creature's voice rumbled like an earthquake. "Human, do you comprehend what stands before you? This council represents 3,000 civilizations spanning half the galaxy. We have maintained order among the stars for longer than your species has existed." Kane nodded slowly. "That's exactly what I'm questioning. How did you gain this authority? Who gave you the right to decide which species can expand and which cannot?" More whispers filled the chamber, but these sounded different now. Less hostile, more uncertain. Kane pressed his advantage. "My species achieved faster than light travel through our own research and development. We built our ships with our own resources. We found and colonized worlds using our own efforts and our own people. We've harmed no existing civilization and claimed no territory belonging to others." Kane's voice grew stronger with each word. "Yet you demand we submit to laws we never agreed to, created by governments we never recognized." A new voice spoke from somewhere in the middle tiers, high and musical like wind chimes. "The human raises an interesting point about sovereignty. By what right do we claim jurisdiction over species that developed independently?" "By right of superior force," rumbled another voice, this one emanating from a crystalline being that looked like living gemstone. "The strong rule the weak? This has always been the way." Kane felt something shift inside him, a calm certainty that surprised him. "Then you admit this isn't about law or order. It's about power. You maintain control through intimidation and the threat of violence." "Watch your tongue, human," the dragon creature warned. You speak to civilizations that mastered the stars when your ancestors were still learning to make fire. And yet, Kane said quietly, here I am. One human in one ship, standing before all of you and making you explain yourselves. If you're so superior, why does my presence here concern you enough to gather the entire council? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Kane could see representatives exchanging glances, gestures, and signals he couldn't interpret. But the tension in the chamber was unmistakable. Something about humanity's rapid expansion had rattled these ancient powers enough to demand immediate attention. A serpentine being with too many eyes spoke next. Your species has established 17 colonies in 12 years. This expansion rate exceeds safety protocols. Safety protocols designed to protect whom? Kane asked. We've encountered no other intelligent life in any system we've colonized. We've claimed no worlds with existing ecosystems that showed signs of sapient development. Our expansion threatens no one. Your expansion threatens the stability of established territories, the crystalline being replied. Rapid growth destabilizes trade routes and defensive positions. Kane smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. So this isn't about protecting other species or maintaining order. This is about protecting your market share and strategic advantages. The admission sent another wave of unease through the assembled representatives. Kane realized that in their arrogance they'd revealed more than they intended. The Galactic Council wasn't a governing body maintaining peace and justice among the stars. It was a cartel protecting the interests of established powers against potential competition. Captain Kane, the dragon creature said, his voice carrying a note of warning that made Kane's skin crawl. You seem to believe your species' youth and inexperience excuse your violations. Perhaps a demonstration of consequences is in order. The lights in the chamber dimmed and new illumination began to fill the space around Kane's platform. Through the transparent walls, he could see massive ships moving into position around the station. Each vessel dwarfed anything in Earth's fleet, bristling with weapons that could reduce planets to cosmic dust. Kane watched the display of force with apparent calm, though his heart hammered against his ribs. This was the moment his government had prepared him for. The moment when words gave way to threats, and threats demanded responses that would determine the fate of his entire species. He reached into his jacket and withdrew a small device that looked like nothing more than a communication unit. The gesture was casual, unthreatening, but every eye in the chamber focused on the object in his hand. Council representatives, Kane said, his voice carrying clearly through the vast space. Before you make any decisions you might regret, there's something you should know about human technology. The device in Kane's hand looked harmless enough, no larger than a standard communicator. It bore no obvious weapon systems or threatening components. Yet something about the captain's casual confidence made every representative in the chamber lean forward with sudden attention. Human Kane, the dragon creature's voice carried a warning that seemed to vibrate through the station's hull itself. Any aggressive action will be met with immediate retaliation. Your ship and your species will be eliminated before you can complete whatever desperate gambit you're attempting. Kane's expression remained perfectly calm. I appreciate the warning, but this isn't a weapon. It's a scanner. I'm simply gathering information about your impressive fleet. He touched a control on the device and its surface began to glow with soft blue light. The crystalline being in the middle tiers shifted position, its faceted form refracting the chamber's illumination into rainbow patterns. What manner of information requires scanning our vessels? The crystal entity demanded. Technical specifications, power output readings, structural composition analysis. Kane studied the device's display with apparent fascination, standard survey data that any explorer would collect when encountering new technology. A new voice entered the conversation from the upper tiers, belonging to a being that looked like flowing liquid metal. Captain, your scanning device is remarkably sophisticated for such a young species. Our sensors detect analysis patterns we don't recognize. Kane nodded approvingly. Human engineering tends toward efficiency. We've learned to extract maximum information from minimal energy expenditure. Explain your purpose, commanded the serpentine representative with too many eyes. Why do you require data on our fleet composition? Professional curiosity, Kane replied. Earth's military analysts will want to understand what they're dealing with if diplomatic relations break down. The dragon creature's massive head tilted downward, fixing Kane with a stare that could have melted steel. You speak as though your primitive fleet could pose any threat to Council forces. Your entire military could not challenge a single one of our escort vessels. Kane's smile grew broader. That's an interesting assumption. Would you like to test it? The chamber erupted in sounds that no human throat could produce. Roars, clicks, harmonic frequencies, and electronic pulses filled the air as representatives expressed outrage, disbelief, and something that might have been fear. The translator implant struggled to keep pace with the cacophony. Silence. The dragon creature's bellow cut through the noise like a physical force. Human, you will explain your meaning immediately. I'm offering a demonstration, Kane said simply. You've assembled an impressive show of force. I'd like to show you what human technology can accomplish in response. The liquid metal being flowed forward in its seat. Captain Kane, scanners indicate your vessel carries no weapon systems. Our analysis shows minimal defensive capabilities and propulsion systems consistent with a courier or research ship. Your analysis is correct, Kane confirmed. The Pathfinder isn't a warship. It's a diplomatic transport with a small scientific crew. Then what demonstration could you possibly offer? The crystalline entity asked, its voice ringing like struck glass. Kane held up the scanning device. This has finished its analysis of your fleet. I now have complete technical specifications for every ship currently positioned around this station. Power cores, shield generators, weapon systems, structural weak points, crew complement estimates, and tactical deployment patterns. He paused, letting the implications sink in. I also have real-time tracking data for every vessel within 3 light years of this position, including ships you believe are hidden or cloaked. The silence that followed his words felt heavy enough to crush mountains. Kane could see representatives exchanging rapid communications through methods ranging from gesture to electromagnetic pulse. The dragon creature's scales had shifted to a darker shade that suggested emotional agitation. Impressive intelligence gathering, the Serpentine being finally said. But information gathering is not the same as military capability. Kane touched another control on his device. True. So let me show you what we do with the information once we have it. Every display screen in the chamber suddenly flickered to life, showing detailed schematics of the Council fleet. Ship layouts, crew quarters, command centers, and critical systems appeared in perfect detail. But more disturbing were the tactical overlays that highlighted optimal strike points and system vulnerabilities. How did you access our secure networks? The liquid metal being demanded, its form rippling with what might have been anxiety. We didn't access anything, Kane replied. These analyses were generated in real time by my scanning device. Human computers are quite good at extrapolating system functions from energy signatures and structural configurations. A new voice spoke from the highest tier of the chamber, belonging to a being Kane hadn't noticed before. It looked like a collection of geometric shapes held together by visible energy fields, and its words seemed to bypass the translators entirely, appearing directly in his mind. Show us, the geometric entity said. Demonstrate this capability. Kane nodded and touched a final control on his device. Certainly. Computer, select target vessel for demonstration. Recommend the battle cruiser in position 7 Alpha. Every screen in the chamber focused on a massive warship hanging in space 3 kilometers from the station. The vessel stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull bristling with enough firepower to sterilize planets. Target selected, Kane said, reading from his device's display. Corellian Heavy Cruiser, designation unknown. Crew complement approximately 8,000. Primary armament includes 12 particle beam batteries and 36 torpedo launchers. Shield capacity rated at 7.4 million standard units. The accuracy of his information sent another wave of unease through the assembled representatives. The dragon creature's voice carried a note of genuine concern. Captain Kane, if you're planning some form of attack— Not an attack, Kane interrupted. An adjustment. He touched the device one more time. Execute demonstration protocol. For several seconds, nothing happened. The battlecruiser continued its steady patrol pattern. Weapons powered but not aimed at any specific target. Then without warning, every light on the massive vessel simply went out. The ship didn't explode. It didn't break apart or show any signs of structural damage. It just stopped. Dead in space, completely powerless, drifting like a 2-kilometer piece of expensive debris. What did you do? The crystalline being demanded. Its voice climbing to frequencies that made several representatives cover their auditory organs. Kane studied his device's readout with the satisfaction of an engineer reviewing successful test results. I turned it off, Impossible, the liquid metal being flowed forward again. Ship systems are hardened against electromagnetic pulse. Command codes are encrypted beyond breaking. No external signal could accomplish total system shutdown. You're absolutely right, Kane agreed. No external signal could do that. But my device isn't sending signals. It's making very small adjustments to the quantum states of key particles inside your battlecruiser's computer cores. The
geometric entity's mental voice carried undertones of
something that might have been awe. Quantum manipulation at distance. Your species has developed reality engineering capabilities. Kane's eyebrows rose slightly. Is that what you call it? We just think of it as applied physics. Once you understand that consciousness can influence quantum states through focused intention, the applications become fairly obvious. Every representative in the chamber stared at the dark battlecruiser floating helplessly in space. 8,000 crew members aboard a ship that had been reduced to a powerless hulk by a human, with a device no larger than a book. The effect is temporary, Kane assured them. Your ship will come back online in approximately 10 minutes. No permanent damage, no injuries to the crew. Just a demonstration of what becomes possible when you really understand how reality works at the quantum level. The dragon creature's voice was barely a whisper. How many ships does Earth possess with these capabilities? Kane's smile was perfectly pleasant and absolutely terrifying. All of them. The paralyzed battlecruiser hung in space like a monument to the impossible. Inside the council chamber, representatives from thousands of worlds sat in stunned silence as the implications of what they'd witnessed sank into their collective consciousness. A single human had disabled one of their most powerful warships without firing a shot, without even raising his voice. The dragon creature that dominated the chamber's highest tier shifted position, his massive form creating shadows that danced across the crystalline walls. Captain Kane, you will explain how your species developed these capabilities. Kane slipped the scanning device back into his jacket with casual indifference. The same way we developed everything else. We experimented, we theorized, we tested our hypotheses, and we built on our successes. Quantum manipulation requires knowledge that takes civilizations millennia to develop. The serpentine being with too many eyes protested. Your species has been spacefaring for less than a century. Time isn't the limiting factor, Kane replied. Understanding is. Most species approach physics from the assumption that consciousness is separate from reality. We started from the opposite position. The geometric entity's mental voice carried undertones of confusion. Explain this philosophical distinction. Kane gestured toward the disabled battlecruiser visible through the chamber's walls. Traditional physics treats consciousness as an observer of reality. We treat it as a participant. Once you accept that intelligent awareness can influence quantum states through focused intention, the mathematics become surprisingly straightforward. A new voice entered the conversation, belonging to a being Kane hadn't heard speak before. It came from the middle tiers, from what looked like a tree made of living crystal that pulsed with internal light. This council has encountered species with similar theoretical approaches, the crystal tree said. Its words carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate through the chamber's structure. They were deemed too dangerous to be permitted continued development. The admission hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Kane felt something cold settle in his stomach as the implications became clear. Deemed dangerous by whom? The dragon creature's scales shifted to a darker hue. By this council. By the representatives of stable established civilizations who understand the responsibility that comes with advanced capabilities. What happened to those species? Kane asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. The liquid metal being flowed through several configurations before responding. They were contained. Their development was redirected along safer paths. Kane's expression didn't change, but every representative in the chamber could sense the shift in his demeanor. The casual confidence remained, but something harder had entered his voice. Contained how exactly? Silence stretched across the vast chamber. Kane could hear the subtle sounds of life support systems, the whisper of air circulation, the distant hum of the station's massive reactors, but no one spoke. I see, Kane said finally. Let me rephrase the question. How many species has this council eliminated for developing quantum manipulation capabilities? The word eliminated carries unfortunate connotations, the crystal tree said. Its internal light flickering with what might have been distress. We prefer preventive intervention. Kane pulled out his scanning device again and studied its display. According to my readings, this station contains archives dating back over 50,000 years. I'm detecting sealed data vaults, restricted historical records, and information classified at levels that suggest significant secrets. The dragon creature leaned forward, his massive head casting the chamber into deeper shadow. Those archives are protected by encryption that no external system can breach. You're probably right about external systems, Kane agreed. But quantum manipulation doesn't rely on external access. I can simply adjust the probability states of the encryption algorithms until they resolve in my favor. He touched a control on his device, and every screen in the chamber began displaying information that hadn't seen light for millennia: lists of species, dates, locations, and clinical descriptions of interventions that painted a picture of systematic genocide spanning epochs. 43 species, Kane read from the data streaming across the displays. 43 civilizations that developed reality engineering capabilities and were subsequently eliminated by council action. The representatives sat in horrified silence as their deepest secrets laid bare for all to see. Kane continued reading from the ancient records, his voice growing colder with each revelation. The Vorthak Collective, eliminated 14,000 years ago for developing consciousness-based matter manipulation. The Eternity Builders, destroyed 8,000 years ago for creating stable quantum probability fields. The Mind Shapers, eradicated 3,000 years ago for achieving direct mental interface with universal constants. He looked up from the device to meet the dragon creature's gaze directly. 43 species that committed the crime of understanding reality too well. 43 civilizations whose only mistake was achieving the same breakthrough that humanity has now accomplished. The crystal tree's internal light dimmed to nearly nothing. Those interventions were necessary to maintain galactic stability. Uncontrolled reality engineering leads to chaos, to the breakdown of physical laws, to the end of organized civilization. According to whose assessment? Kane demanded. According to the same council that has systematically murdered anyone who might challenge their monopoly on power. We have maintained order for 50 millennia, the liquid metal being protested, its form rippling with agitation. Without council oversight, the galaxy would have descended into warfare and anarchy. Kane gestured toward the displays still showing the archived records of genocide. You've maintained your version of order by committing mass murder on a scale that defies comprehension. 43 entire species, billions upon billions of individuals, erased from existence because they threatened your control. The geometric entity's mental voice carried notes of desperation. The power to manipulate reality at quantum levels cannot be trusted to unstable civilizations. We have seen what happens when such capabilities are misused. Have you? Kane asked. Or have you simply assumed the worst about species you were determined to destroy anyway? He touched another control on his device, and the displays shifted to show more recent data. These archives also contain surveillance reports on current species showing signs of quantum manipulation development. 3 civilizations are currently under observation for preventive intervention. The chamber fell silent as the current scope of the council's activities became clear. Kane studied the information with the detached interest of a scientist reviewing experimental data. The Nexari Confederation, the Void Dancers, the Probability Weavers, all 3 species have made theoretical breakthroughs that suggest impending reality engineering capabilities. Kane looked up from his device. How long before you decide they need to be eliminated? Those species are being monitored, the Serpentine being said, its too many eyes blinking in rapid sequence. If they demonstrate responsible development, you'll find some excuse to destroy them anyway. Kane interrupted. Just like you've done 43 times before. Just like you're planning to do to humanity. The dragon creature's voice carried the weight of millennia when he spoke. Captain Kane, you have accessed information that threatens the fundamental stability of galactic civilization. This council cannot permit such knowledge to spread? Kane smiled, and the expression held no warmth whatsoever. You're absolutely right. This information is incredibly dangerous. It reveals that the Galactic Council isn't a governing body maintaining peace and order. It's a criminal organization that has committed genocide on an industrial scale for 50,000 years. He paused, letting his words echo through the vast chamber. The question is, what happens now that humanity knows the truth? The paralyzed battlecruiser outside chose that moment to power back online, its lights flickering to life across its massive hull. The timing was perfect, a reminder that humanity possessed the capability to disable Council forces at will, and now they also possessed the knowledge of why such capabilities were necessary. The weight of 50,000 years of hidden genocide pressed down on the Council chamber like a physical force. Representatives from across the galaxy stared at the displays showing their civilization's darkest secrets, while Captain Kane stood at the center of it all with the calm confidence of someone holding all the cards. The dragon creature's massive form dominated the upper tiers of the chamber, his scales now shifting through colors that suggested deep emotional turmoil. Captain Kane, you have forced us to reveal information that was classified for the protection of galactic stability. Classified to protect your monopoly on power, Kane corrected. There's a difference. The geometric entity's mental voice carried harmonics of barely controlled panic. You cannot comprehend the consequences of releasing this information. Knowledge of the interventions will destabilize the political structure that has maintained peace for millennia. Kane touched his scanning device again, and the displays shifted to show current galactic political maps. Territory boundaries, trade routes, defense alliances, and resource distribution patterns painted a picture of the modern galaxy's power structure. Your version of peace, Kane said, studying the data, enforced through the threat of total annihilation for anyone who develops beyond the technological limits you've established. The crystal tree's internal light pulsed with rapid, agitated rhythms. The alternative is chaos. Uncontrolled reality engineering capabilities in the hands of aggressive or unstable species would lead to the destruction of everything we've built. Built on the graves of 43 murdered civilizations, Kane replied without looking away from his device. Tell me, which of the current council members achieved their positions through their own technological development, and which inherited or conquered territories from species you eliminated? The question sent a wave of uncomfortable movement through the assembled representatives. Kane could see beings exchanging glances, gestures, and communications that suggested the answer was more damning than they wanted to admit. The liquid metal being flowed through several configurations before responding. Historical territorial adjustments were made according to established protocols. Historical territorial adjustments, Kane repeated. You've developed quite a vocabulary for genocide and theft. I'm impressed by your creative use of language. The serpentine creature with too many eyes spoke up, its voice carrying defensive undertones. Captain Kane, you speak as though your species would handle such power more responsibly than those who came before. Kane finally looked up from his device, meeting the serpentine being's multiple gazes directly. That's exactly what I'm saying. Humanity will handle reality engineering more responsibly than you have, because we won't use it to commit mass murder. Bold words from a species that has existed in space for less than a century. The dragon creature rumbled. What makes you believe humanity is somehow superior to civilizations with millions of years of experience? Experience in what? Kane asked. Experience in maintaining power through fear? Experience in eliminating anyone who might challenge the established order? Experience in justifying genocide as a necessary evil? He gestured toward the displays still showing the archived records of the Council's interventions. If that's the kind of experience you're offering, we'll pass. The crystal tree's harmonics shifted to frequencies that seemed to resonate with sadness. You misunderstand our position, Captain. We take no pleasure in the interventions. Each decision was made with heavy hearts, after careful consideration of all alternatives. Heavy hearts, Kane said, his voice flat with disbelief. You systematically murdered 43 entire species and you want credit for feeling bad about it? A new voice entered the conversation from the far reaches of the chamber, belonging to a being Kane could barely see in the dim lighting of the upper tiers. It sounded ancient beyond measure, carrying weight that spoke of eons of existence. Captain Kane, the ancient voice said, your species has achieved something we believed impossible. You have developed stable reality engineering capabilities without descending into chaos or aggression. Perhaps there is wisdom in your approach that we have failed to recognize. The admission sent shockwaves through the assembled representatives. Kane could see the dragon creature turning toward the source of the ancient voice, his massive form radiating surprise and something that might have been hope. Elder Terminus speaks truth. The geometric entity's mental voice carried new harmonics of consideration. Humanity's development pattern differs significantly from the 43 previous species. They have achieved quantum manipulation without exhibiting signs of reality dissociation or aggressive expansion. Kane felt a moment of something that might have been sympathy for these ancient beings. You're afraid. All of you. You've spent so long preventing change that you've forgotten how to adapt to it. We have maintained stability, the liquid metal being protested, but its form seemed less confident than before. You've maintained stagnation, Kane replied. There's a difference. Stability comes from growth and adaptation. Stagnation comes from fear of change. The ancient voice spoke again, carrying weight that seemed to bend reality around its words. What would humanity propose as an alternative to the current system? Kane smiled for the first time since revealing the Council's genocide records. That's simple. Stop murdering species for achieving technological breakthroughs. Let intelligence develop naturally instead of culling anyone who gets too smart. And if they misuse reality engineering capabilities? The crystal tree asked, its internal light flickering with anxiety. If they destabilize local space or threaten established civilizations, then you deal with them the same way you've always dealt with genuine threats, Kane said. Through diplomacy, trade sanctions, defensive alliances, or as a last resort, targeted military action against specific aggressors. But you don't commit genocide based on potential future threats. The dragon creature leaned forward, his massive presence casting deeper shadows across the chamber. You speak of idealistic solutions, Captain. But reality is more complex than your youthful optimism suggests. Kane's expression hardened. My species developed reality engineering capabilities in isolation, with no guidance, no oversight, and no restrictions. We didn't destabilize local space. We didn't threaten established civilizations. We explored, we learned, and we grew. He paused, letting his words echo through the vast chamber. The 43 species you eliminated never had that chance. You murdered them based on fear and assumptions, not evidence. The ancient voice carried new weight when it spoke again. What assurance can humanity provide that other species will demonstrate similar responsibility? None, Kane admitted freely. But that's not humanity's decision to make. Every species has the right to develop according to its own nature and face the consequences of its own choices. The geometric entity's mental voice carried undertones of deep consideration. You propose a fundamental restructuring of galactic governance, the dissolution of preventive intervention protocols, the acceptance of uncontrolled technological development across all species. I propose the end of systematic genocide disguised as galactic governance, Kane corrected. What you build to replace it is up to you. The chamber fell silent as the implications of his words sank in. Kane could see representatives engaging in rapid communications, forming alliances and opposition groups based on reactions to his proposal. The dragon creature's voice carried the weight of millennia when he finally spoke. And if this council refuses to abandon intervention protocols? If we determine that humanity itself represents too great a threat to galactic stability? Kane's smile returned, but this time it carried no warmth whatsoever. Then you'll discover what happens when a species with mature, reality engineering capabilities decides that the Galactic Council represents a threat to universal peace. The paralyzed battlecruiser outside the station chose that moment to flicker its lights in what looked almost like a salute, a reminder that humanity's reach extended far beyond a single man with a scanning device. The age of Council supremacy was ending, whether they accepted it or not. The emergency session stretched through 3 full cycles of the station's day-night rotation. Representatives from across the galaxy huddled in desperate discussions, while Captain Kane waited patiently in diplomatic quarters, apparently unconcerned by the chaos his revelations had unleashed. In the main chamber, the ancient voice that had spoken earlier now commanded attention from the highest tier of the assembly. Elder Terminus, a being so old that his species' name had been forgotten by history, addressed the council with words that carried the weight of eons. In 50 millennia of governance, this council has faced many challenges to established order, the ancient being said, his voice resonating through harmonics that bypassed translation entirely. We have weathered rebellions, territorial disputes, and technological disruptions. But we have never faced a challenge that questioned the fundamental legitimacy of our authority. The dragon creature shifted position, his massive scales reflecting the chamber's lights like black mirrors. Elder Terminus speaks wisdom. The human has forced us to confront truths we have long avoided acknowledging. Around the chamber, Representatives from thousands of worlds engaged in heated discussions. The crystalline beings chimed in harmonic frequencies that spoke of deep philosophical divisions. The liquid metal entities flowed through configurations that suggested intense emotional processing. The geometric creatures projected mathematical symbols that represented complex logical arguments. The archives cannot be sealed again, the crystal tree observed, its internal light pulsing with resigned acceptance. The knowledge of our interventions will spread regardless of our decisions here. The serpentine being with too many eyes coiled tighter around its platform. The political consequences will be severe. Member species will question their loyalty to a council that has committed systematic genocide. Perhaps such questioning is overdue, Elder Terminus replied. We have maintained order through fear and control for so long that we have forgotten the principles upon which this council was originally founded. A new voice entered the discussion from the middle tiers. Belonging to a species Kane had not yet heard speak. The being looked like living shadow given form, its words emerging from darkness itself. The Shadow Collective requests clarification of proposed alternatives, the dark entity said. If intervention protocols are abandoned, what mechanisms will prevent reality engineering capabilities from destabilizing local space? Elder Terminus considered the question carefully. Perhaps the answer lies not in prevention but in guidance. The human species achieved stable development in isolation. Other species might benefit from proper instruction rather than elimination. Instruction from whom? The liquid metal being asked, its form rippling with uncertainty. The Council lacks expertise in reality engineering. We have spent millennia ensuring such knowledge remained contained. Instruction from those who have successfully mastered the discipline, Elder Terminus replied. Humanity has demonstrated responsible development. Perhaps they would be willing to share their methodologies. The implications of the suggestion sent shockwaves through the assembled representatives. The idea of asking the humans for help, rather than attempting to destroy them, represented a fundamental reversal of 50,000 years of established policy. The dragon creature leaned forward, his massive presence dominating the chamber. You propose that we request assistance from a species we intended to eliminate? That we acknowledge our own inadequacy in dealing with advanced capabilities? I propose that we acknowledge reality, Elder Terminus corrected. Humanity has achieved what we believed impossible. They have developed reality engineering without destroying themselves or threatening others. Perhaps there is wisdom in their approach that we have failed to recognize. The ancient voice paused, letting his words resonate through the vast chamber. The alternative is to attempt elimination of a species that has demonstrated the ability to disable our most powerful warships without effort. The probable outcome of such an attempt should be obvious to all present. The crystal tree's harmonics shifted to frequencies that suggested reluctant agreement. The humans have made their position clear. Continued intervention protocols will result in active resistance from a species with mature reality engineering capabilities. More than resistance, the geometric entity added, its mental voice carrying undertones of calculation. Analysis of human technological capabilities suggests they could eliminate council forces with minimal effort if they chose aggression over negotiation. The chamber fell silent as representatives processed the scope of their predicament. For 50 millennia, the Galactic Council had maintained power through superior technology and overwhelming force. Now they faced a species that rendered their advantages meaningless. Elder Terminus spoke again, his ancient voice carrying the weight of inevitable change. This council faces a choice that will define the next epoch of galactic history. We can cling to old methods and face certain destruction, or we can adapt to new realities and potentially discover a better path forward. The voting process took another full day cycle to complete. Representatives consulted with their home governments, analyzed tactical scenarios, and debated philosophical implications. But the outcome was never truly in doubt. When faced with adaptation or annihilation, even the most conservative civilizations chose survival. The final tally was announced by the dragon creature himself, his voice carrying through the chamber with formal solemnity. By unanimous consent of all member species, the Galactic Council hereby abandons all intervention protocols related to technological development. No species shall face elimination or containment for achieving advanced capabilities through legitimate research and development. The announcement was followed by a second resolution that surprised even Kane when he was informed of the results. Furthermore, this council formally requests assistance from humanity in developing safe methodologies for reality engineering research. We acknowledge that our previous approaches have proven inadequate and dangerous. Kane stood once again on the defendant's platform, but this time the atmosphere in the chamber was entirely different. Instead of hostile interrogation, he faced beings who were genuinely seeking guidance from a species they had intended to destroy mere days before. "Captain Kane," Elder Terminus said, his ancient voice carrying notes of something that might have been hope, "your species has achieved remarkable stability in reality engineering development. Would humanity be willing to share the philosophical and technical frameworks that enabled this achievement?" Kane considered the question carefully. Humanity would be honored to assist species seeking genuine understanding. But such assistance comes with conditions. "State your terms," the dragon creature said, though his tone suggested he understood these would not be negotiations between equals. "Complete transparency in all research activities. No species develops reality engineering capabilities in secret or isolation. All discoveries are shared freely among participants. And most importantly, any species that uses these capabilities for aggressive expansion or coercive control will face immediate intervention by humanity." The conditions were accepted without debate. The council that had once ruled through fear and genocide now found itself accepting oversight from the species it had intended to eliminate. Over the following months, the galaxy began to transform in ways that no one could have predicted. The three species under surveillance for potential intervention emerged from hiding and openly began developing their capabilities under human guidance. Ancient archives were unsealed, revealing the true scope of galactic history and the civilizations that had been lost to council intervention. Most surprisingly, several species began making unprecedented technological breakthroughs, once freed from the fear of elimination. Innovation flourished when intelligence was allowed to develop naturally rather than being artificially constrained. Captain Kane returned to Earth 6 months later, carrying news that would reshape humanity's role in galactic affairs. The small transport that had challenged an entire galaxy landed at the same spaceport where its journey began. But the universe it returned to was fundamentally different from the one it had left. The age of genocidal intervention was over. The age of cooperative development had begun. And at the center of it all, humanity found itself in the unexpected position of shepherding the galaxy's emergence into a new era of conscious evolution. The Council had learned too late that their greatest mistake wasn't allowing dangerous species to develop advanced capabilities. Their greatest mistake was believing that growth and change could be prevented forever. Reality engineering had come to the galaxy, whether they wanted it or not. The only choice was whether that development would be guided by wisdom or fear. Thanks to one human ship's challenge to established authority, wisdom had finally won.